The heart of the crooked swamp loomed before Xerith Xandor like a living tapestry of shadows and whispers. Gnarled roots stretched upward from the dark waters, twisting into grotesque shapes as if the trees were reaching out for something just beyond reach. The air was thick with humidity, clinging to their skin, while the faint glow of bioluminescent fungi cast an otherworldly light, illuminating the dense fog that cloaked the landscape. Each step forward sent ripples through the murky depths, the squelch of mud beneath their sturdy boots echoing the unease thrumming in their chest. Clutching a small vial in one mend, Xerith felt the weight of unfulfilled ambitions settle heavily on their shoulders, the promise of discovery contrasting sharply with the nagging doubts of their past. They paused, the whispers of local inhabitants swirling around them like the mist, layered with skepticism and expectation. As they waded deeper, the murmur of voices grew clearer, fragments of conversation punctuated by the rustling of the foliage. What does Xerith think they'll find in there? More of their own ego, a voice called out, laced with disdain. Another chimed in, softer, yet tinged with concern. There they lays the history of this land. The stories that bind us, Xerith's heart quickened, a familiar blend of anger and guilt rising within. They had always sought the admiration of the scientific community, yet the weight of those words pulled them back, haunting reminders of the roots they often neglected. Gathering their resolve, they plunged their arm into the water, fingers brushing against the slimy surfaces of submerged plants, collecting samples with a desperate fervor, as if each one could silence the voices that taunted them. Grieve appeared, stepping through the fog, his stocky fay cutting a silhouette against the backdrop of twisted trees. "Kasir," he called, his tone a mix of caution and familiarity. "This ain't just land for your experiments. It history. It hit home. You're walking a fine line, you know." His eyes, deep-set and serious, bore into Xerith, a reminder of community ties that felt thick chains at times. You keep chasing after accolades, and you might just lose sight of what matters. The people. Your people. Remember, it not just about the findings, but about the bonds that hold us together. Xerith straightened, the vial clutched tightly in their grasp. Heart-pounded Kallum words sank in. The swamp, with its tangy scent of decay and damp earth, seemed to close in on them. They had always envisioned their research as a bridge to recognition, a way to reconcile their past with their future. But now, amid the murmurings of the inhabitants and Kallum's piercing gaze, they felt the chasm widen. Should they persist in seeking the spotlight, or was it time to reflect on the weight of their ambitions? The air felt charged, every choice quivering with tension as Kallum remained steadfast, a silent sentinel against their unchecked aspirations. The air hung thick with uncertainty as Xerith's resolve faltered, a question bubbling to the surface that had long been buried. Could they truly bridge their ambitions with the needs of their community, or was the pursuit of recognition a path paved with shadows? As the bioluminescent fungi flickered in the fading light, casting ghostly shadows that danced around them, Xerith's mind raced with possibilities. Would they turn back, relinquishing their dreams for the comfort of belonging, or would they plunge deeper into the swamp, risking it all for a chance at greatness? The murmur of the swamp and its inhabitants swelled around them, urging them to choose, to act. Nothing could remain unresolved. The weight of their decision loomed like the mist, shrouding the path ahead. The gathering hall, a once vibrant center of community life, now echoed with fervent voices rising like steam from a cauldron. Tin lanterns swung gently from the rafters, casting flickering shadows against the damp wooden walls, and the scent of sweat mingled with the faint tang of iron from the rusting nails that held the structure together. Xerith Xandor linger at the back, their heart thrumming against the confines of their patchwork lab coat, every stitch a reminder of the ambitions that had drawn them in. As the revolutionary manifesto was read aloud, A surge of excitement coursed through the crowd, igniting old dreams and fears alike. Yet, in the corner, Kallum Grieve, with his stocky build and piercing glare, stirred the crowd, his voice a whip-crack of authority, intent on shaping the narrative to his will. "This is madness," Kallum's voice boomed, slicing through the hopeful chatter like a knife. "You want to trust a scientist who cares more for accolades than for our livelihoods." The locals murmured, their expressions twisted with doubt, while Kallum paced before them, his stout hands gesturing wildly. Xerith felt the heat of their rising ambition clash against the chill of Kallum rhetoric, fingers twitching as they resisted the urge to step forward and defend their work. But the mentor warning echoed in their mind, a tether holding them back. "Remember your path, Xerith. Science without community will lead to ruin." Xerith's grip tightened around the small notebook in their pocket, the pages full of sketches and dreams for a groundbreaking exhibit, a bridge between scientific exploration and the community needs. They could feel the weight of Kallum's words in the air, each syllable a chain that threatened to bind their aspirations. It was then that they saw the flicker of interest in the eyes of some inhabitants, as if Kallum's doubts had ignited a spark of defiance. "We deserve better," someone shouted, emboldened by the manifesto call for change. And that spark became a small flame, lighting its way to Xerith's heart. The intoxicating rush of ambition surged within them, threatening to drown the caution. "If only your precious science could feed our children or heal our sick," Kallum had retorted, his disdain palpable. A ripple of agreement swept through the crowd, and Xerith's chest constricted, torn between the urge to educate and the fear of isolation. "I create something that will show the true power of our community and my research," they whispered to themselves, heart racing at the thought of unveiling their exhibit, a testament to both their scientific passion and commitment to the people. In the clamor of voices, Xerith stood, tall and determined, yet burdened by Kallum's scrutiny. If their rival's mere presence threatened to snuff the flame before it would truly ignite. With a decisive breath, Xerith squared their shoulders, stepping forward toward the front of the hall. The momentum of their ambition swelled, urging them onward as Kallum's voice faded into a distant murmur. "I will prove that science and community can coexist," Xerith vowed silently, the weight of the manifesto pressing against their back. But even they took that first step into the light of the crowd. The wise mentor's gaze lingered in their memory, a reminder that ambition could easily drift into hubris, if not tempered by the duty they owed to those who had raised them. The tension between the two paths crackled in the air, a promise of confrontation yet to come. As the voices round them swelled with fervor, Xerith felt a tide rising, both exhilarating and terrifying. They had made their choice to step into the fray, yet the shadow of Kallum's influence loomed large, threatening to engulf their budding resolve. "We want change," someone called out, the chant rising like a tide, but the question lingered heavily in Xerith's mind. At what cost? The gathering, thick with anticipation, crackled with the potential for unity and division. In that moment, they realized that embracing their ambition was not merely a personal endeavor, it was a challenge to redefine what it meant to serve their community. The hall buzzed with possibility, the air electric as they prepared to speak, aware that their next words could either solidify their place among the people or lay bare the rift that threatened to tear them apart. The laboratory was a sanctuary of chaos, illuminated only by the flickering glow of an ancient oil lamp that cast dancing shadows on the clutter of walls. Shelves sagged under the weight of glass vials and dusty tomes, each a testament to Xandor's insatiable curiosity. Leaning over a wide, scarred wooden tale, they traced fervent lines on a massive sheet of parchment, their dark green hair pulled back tightly, revealing the prominent scar that bisected their left cheek. The smell of metal and old books mingled in the air, a heady reminder of past experiments and restless nights. Outside, the crooked swamp breathed a heavy sigh, the distant croak of amphibian mingling with the soft rustle of leaves, an intimate symphony, underscoring the weight of Xerith ambition. The door creaked open, and Grieve stepped inside, his polished boots whispering against the floorboards. "You're losing yourself in this, Xerith," he said, his voice a smooth veneer over the palpable tension. His piercing blue eyes scanned the chaotic landscape of sketches and notes, brows furrowing in concern. "What good is a vision if it isolates you from those you aim to uplift?" He moved closer, arms crossed, the serpent tattoo on his forearm coiling as if echoing the very ambitions that now threatened to ensnare them. Both. Xerith straightened, defiance igniting in their amber eyes. This exhibit could redefine everything, a chance to reshape perceptions, to ignite progress. Their fingers danced over the lines they had drawn, each stroke filled with hope. "If I don't push forward, who will? This is bigger than the community fears over for Crackles with a lock prostampy. It's atlative. And gay in the community fears with a mover coso. Tiskisalock, but the community fell in. Walloon crackled with intensity, laden with the weight of their aspirations and the shadows of doubt that lingered in the corners, uninvited but persistent. Kallum stepped further into the light, his expression calculating yet softening slightly, as if trying to reach Xerith through the haze of ambition. But at what cost? He pressed, lowering his voice. A legacy is not built on isolation, but on connection. Will your ambition lead to progress, or will it leave our people behind? The words hung in the air, a delicate balance of challenge and caution. Xerith paused, the echoes of their mentor's warning reverberating within, urging them to confront the very heart of their journey. The community hall, a relic of weather-rare wood and cracked plaster, stood dimly lit, shadows dancing against the walls as flickering bulbs buzzed overhead. The air was thick with tension, palpable anxiety clinging to the community members there in hesitant clusters, their murmurs blending into a low hum of skepticism. Xandor stood at the center, their patchwork lab coat fluttering slightly. They shifted, the weight of their ambitions pressing down. Writing loams. Bright amber eyes scanned the crowd, searching for a flicker of understanding, a spark of curiosity amidst the echoes of betrayal ringing in their ears. Each face seemed hardened, distrust etched into the lines of their brows, and with every breath Xerith felt the distance between their vision and the community of fears grow wider. "You can't seriously expect us to believe these experiments will benefit anyone but yourself, Xerith." Kallum Grieve's voice sliced through the tension, rich with disdain. He stood at the back, arms crossed, his stocky frame imposing. The community murmured in agreement, resentment rippling through the crowd. "What makes you think your personal glory is worth the risks you're imposing on our way of life?" Kallum's words hung in the air, charged, and he met Xerith's gaze with a challenging stare, a silent endorsement in seating the crowd further. Xerith clenched their fists, channeling the anxiety threatening to spiral into anger. "These tests are designed to help us adapt, to bring innovation into our hours." They stepped forward, trying to bridge the chasm opening between them and the community. "We have the opportunity to create sustainable solutions for our environmental challenge." But the murmurs of dissent grew louder, voices underscoring the betrayal hanging in the air like a thick fog. "You think you know what best for us?" A voice called out from the crowd, shaking with barely concealed fury. The atmosphere shifted as murmurs morphed forth into pointed accusations, voices rising and blending, a cacophony of fears unleashed. Kallum leaned closer, eyes narrowing, his tone dripping with calculated manipulation. This isn't just about your ambitions, Xerith. This is about our homes, our families. You're risking everything we've built for a chance at recognition. With each word he wove a net of mistrust, tightening it at Xerith, who stood, heart racing, feeling isolation close in the swamp creeping fog. They tried to respond, but the warmth that once embraced their dreams now felt like a chilling betrayal. Desperation clawed at Xerith's throat as silence fell momentarily, the weight of their aspirations pressing against their chest. They glanced at the faces before them, once familiar friends now twisted by fear. A wave of uncertainty washed over them, an et of their mentor, warning, reverberating in their mind. "I just want," they began, but the words fell away, drowned by the hostility permeating the hall. The crowd energy shifted, and Xerith felt the ground beneath them tremble with the realization that their vision, their earnest hope, had become a source of division rather than unity. As the chaos of voices swirled down them, a hollow ache settled in Xerith's heart. They stood frozen, a solitary figure amidst the storm of dissent, feeling more alien than them in the place they sought to uplift. The dimly lit hall, once a sanctuary of community, now felt like a prison of judgment, and the realization hit hard. Their ambition had come at an unanticipated cost. With a final glance around the room, a spark of resolve ignited within, whispering that perhaps this was not the end, but rather a painful beginning. They would need to find a way to turn this tide, to bridge the gap between their dreams and the fears of those they cared about. Perhaps, after all, witnessing, to understand before trying to lead. The market square, sweltered with life, a cacophony of voices and vibrant colors swirling in the humid air of the crooked swamp. Stalls crafted from weathered wood overflowed with the bounty of the then vivid fruits and tangled herbs, their scents mingling with the swamp's earthy musk. Xerith Xandor stood at the edge of the square, their dark green hair caught in the breeze like a flag of ambition. But the bright amber of their eyes was clouded with trepidation. The warmth of the sun barely pierced the dense fog, and with each passing moment, the whispers of the crowd coalesced into an undercurrent of unrest. Among them, Kallum Grieve, a stocky figure with a commanding presence, moved like a storm, his words sharp and calculated, sow seeds of doubt in Xerith's vision of progress. Kallum's voice rose above the crowd, a thunderous melody that captivated his audience. "You give it progress, but tell me, Xerith, what will your grand experiments bring? More risks? More dangers?" He gestured dramatically, the rough texture of his hands emphasizing each point, drawing gasps from the throng. "You think you can tame this swamp, but you know nothing of its spirits, its history." The onlookers shifted uneasily, their faces painted with uncertainty, but Kallum's charisma wrapped out them like the creeping vines of the swamp itself. Xerith clenched their fists, the patchwork of their lab coat rustling against their cargo pants, a sound swallowed by the mounting tension. They stepped forward, each footfall a desperate plea for understanding. "I want to find solutions, to harness the potential of our and for our sakes." Their voice strained against the rising tide of resentment, yet the warmth of their conviction flickered like a candle in the damp air. They could feel the weight of the crowd eyes, a mixture of hope and fear, and within that gaze was the very crux of their struggle. "Solutions," Kallum laughed, a low rumble that reverberated through the square.
"You speak of solutions while you blind us with dreams."
"What have you built but walls between you and us?" He stepped closer, eyes narrowed, casting a shadow over Xerith's resolve. The et of his words bounced off the weatherware stalls, each syllable a brick in the fortress of doubt he was constructing. As the crowd murmured, Xerith's heart raced, feeling the walls close in. Brick by brick, yet deep within, a fire ignited, stirring something fierce and resolute. In that moment, the fog seemed to lift just enough for clarity to dawn on Xerith. They straightened, drawing a deep breath infused with the swamp for earthy scent, and met Kallum's challenging gaze.
If you believe I have threat, then I prove you wrong.
I show you that again, we can change this swamp for the better. I won't fight you, but I will fight for our community. The resolve in their voice cut through the lingering doubt, echoing back to the crowd with a resonance that promised a shift, a movement towards something greater than themselves. As whispers turned to hushed discussions, the air crackled with newfound energy, a delicate transition from fear to fervor. Xerith locked eyes with several community members, reading the mixture of skepticism and curiosity etched on their faces. The resolve solidified within them. This was not merely a battle for recognition, but a call to unity. With every heartbeat, they felt the shadows of their ambition rise against the backdrop of the swaying market square. It was time to weave their dreams with the needs of the community. As Kallum's contorted expression reflected disbelief, Xerith stepped forward, a quiet promise in their heart. They would reclaim their narrative, for the swamp and for themselves. The exhibition space Buzz de Blio. The exhibition space Buzz de Blio. Stout. Xerith Xandor stood at the heart of it, their lean frame shifting uneasily in the patchwork lab coat that had become Fawn's armor or Hord's shroud. Each breath carried the scent of fresh paint, mingled with the metallic tinge of anxiety that clung to the air like static. Around them, the audience, a tide of critics, colleagues, and curious townsfolk, murmured, their voices rising and falling like distant waves. Xerith's bright amber eyes scanned the crowd, searching for a glimmer of encouragement. Their heart drummed a frantic rhythm, a stark contrast to the stillness of the polished floor beneath their sturdy boots. Today was a reckoning. The exhibit was the culmination of years spent chasing recognition, a lifeline thrown to those who had dared to dream alongside them, yet still a nervous coil tightened within. As the crowd settled, Grieve, the burly figure of skepticism, stepped forward, arms crossed defiantly over his broad chest. A low chuckle rumbled from him, a sound meant to prick at Xerith's resolve. "We think this contraption will silence the critics?" he called out, his voice grating against the hopeful silence. Xerith's fingers tightened around the edge of the podium, the wood cool against their skin as they swallowed hard, steeling themselves against the creeping doubt. They had poured their essence into this project, the intricate mechanisms, the vibrant visuals, each element a plea for understanding. But now, under the weight of Kallum derision, those aspirations felt fragile, suspended like a delicate thread. "Just wait and see," Xerith replied, voice barely above a whisper, the tremor betraying the confidence they wished to convey. But the crowd had begun to murmur again, skepticism swirling in the air thick as the humidity the saying. They could sense the tension, feel it winding tighter around them as they initiated the display. With the flick of a vid, the exhibit sprang to life, whirring and clicking in an intricate ballet of mechanics and lights. Xerith held their breath, half expecting a spark of brilliance to ignite the moment. Then it came a jarring clatter, a misalignment of gears, and what had promised a breathtaking projection devolved into chaos. The centerpiece, once poised and elegant, buckled, sending a cascade of vibrant panels shattering to the floor, the sound shattering the heavy air with a deafening finality. Gasps erupted from the audience, like a wave crashing against a rocky shore. And in that moment, time stretched, the air thick with disbelief and ridicule. Xerith's heart plummeted, the weight of scorn cascading from the crowd as laughter erupted, sharp and bitter, slicing through the remnants of their hope. Kallum's eyes gleamed with triumph, the laughter echoing in Xerith's ears, a stark reminder of their isolation. As the last shards of their ambition lay scattered across the polished floor, Xerith felt each gaze pinning them down, every snicker a dagger to their already shattered resolve. A crushing wave of despair fled over them, but beneath it simmered something darker, a flicker of defiance igniting in the pit of their stomach. In this moment of calamity, they understood that their journey could not end there, not while they still carried the echoes of their community in their heart. They had to reclaim narrative, their hand already reaching for the remnants of the exhibit, ready to rise from the wreckage. But they looked up, determination mixed with uncertainty. The room seemed to close in, and with Kallum's scornful laughter still ringing in their ears, they knew the battle for their dreams was just beginning. The air in Xerith's Xandor laboratory hung heavy, thickened by the mingled scents of chemicals and the earthy undertones of aged paper. Shelves laden with glass vials and intricate machinery rose precariously, while the chaos of half-finished projects created a maze of clutter, the very embodiment of their fraying focus. The dim light flickered above, casting shadows that danced across the walls, a cacophony of uncertainty and desperation. A glass beaker tipped over, spilling a vivid blue liquid onto the floor, a minor catastrophe that mirrored Xerith's turbulent thoughts. With dark green hair tied back, they stood amidst the disorder, eyes bright with resolve but clouded by doubt, clutching a worn notebook filled with hasty, scrawled notes. The et of Kallum Grieve. Recent laughter reverberated in their mind, a reminder of the ticking clock, urging them to complete their exhibit, to redeem their standing before it slipped through their fingers like sand. Xerith took a shaky breath, eyes darting from one corner of the lab to another, desperate for a solution. Time was a relentless enemy, and each passing moment intensified the churning knot in their stomach. They flipped through the notebook, each page a reminder of their grand ambitions, now overshadowed the expectation of the community. If I could just modify the procedure slightly, they muttered under their breath, fingers tracing the margins where they had noted potential shortcuts. The thrill of possibility sparked alongside dread. Would it really be so wrong to cut a few corners? The stakes were too high, and failure was not an option. As the decision settled around them like a tightening noose, Xerith led the scattered equipment. Their hands moved with urgency, almost feverish, as they recalibrated the machine with a reckless determination born of desperation. Shoulders hunched, they spoke aloud to the empty lab, a habit that made the silence less oppressive. Just this once, they breathed, almost as if seeking solace in their own words. I need this to work. I can't afford to let them down again. The machines whir and beep back in an unsettling symphony, punctuated by the occasional hiss of steam escaping. The ambiance felt electric, charged with a mix of anxiety and the thrill of the unknown. As they mixed the chemicals with a hurried hand, a small part of Xerith whispered warnings. Consequences loomed in the shadows of their mind, a haunting reminder of the risks they were choosing to ignore. Just then, the door creaked open, and Kallum entered, his presence an unwelcome shadow. You look like you're about to blow something up, Kallum remarked, arms crossed, his brow furrowed with skepticism.
What the tale, Xerith?
More wild theories, or is this going to be the real deal? The tone was mocking yet underlined with genuine concern. Connect Cruciento, the beaker almost slipping from their grasp. I'm close, Kallum.
I just need to push a little further to make it work.
Just trust me this once, they replied, the plea barely masking their rising frustration. Kallum's gaze searched theirs, and for a heartbeat, doubt flickered between them. Xerith's heart raced, the tension coiling tighter as Kallum. Silence filled the room. The air felt thick with unspoken accusation. Finally, Kallum sighed, the breath escaping him like deflating air from a balloon. "Just don't say I didn't warn you when it goes wrong, all right?" With that, he turned, leaving Xerith alone once more, the weight of his warning a tangible pressure. As they resumed their frantic work, a sense of unease settled in their chest, the feeling that they were balancing on the edge of a precipice, one wrong move away from chaos. When the last mixture turned a vibrant green, almost glowing in the dim light, a rush of exhilaration coursed through Xerith. But beneath the surge of triumph lay a creeping dread, an unsettling whisper that warned of the dangers ahead. They stood before the machine, heart racing, the tremor of uncertainty palpable in the air. Was this success or a prelude to disaster? As the clock ticked ominously, counting down the hours until the community judgment, Xerith felt the ground shift beneath their feet. They had chosen to step forward, but at what cost? The choice haunted them as they prepared for what was to come, the lingering question echoing in the depths of their mind. Yes, but at what price? The community center hummed with restless energy, its walls adorned with banners announcing the latest neighborhood narrative. A cacophony of colors that felt almost celebratory amidst the mounting tension. Xerith Xandor stood at the edge of the gathering, their dark green hair pulled back in a practical knot, a patchwork lab coat draping over their lean but muscular frame, pockets bulging with scribbled notes and scientific tools. The scent of stale coffee mingled with the faint tang of fear in the air. Thickening they watched Kallum Grieve, stocky and confident, take the stage. His voice boomed, carrying the weight of authority as he unveiled a project that felt all too familiar, the co-idea stolen from the depths of Xerith's own ambitions. A chill crept down their spine, twisting like the roots of the swamp surrounding their community view. The realization began to sink in. This was not just a meeting, it was a reckoning. And with this new exhibit, we finally addressed the waste management crisis plaguing our beloved Crooked Swamp.
Kallum's eyes sparkled with the thrill of performance, casting a wide net over the assembly.
Gasps echoed, punctuated by murmurs of agreement. Xerith's heart pounded, each beat a reminder of what had been stolen from them. Their hands clenched into fists, the edges of their coat brushing against their leg like a temperature drop signaling an impending storm. The air around them thickened, charged with disbelief and brewing rage, and they fought against the urge to stand and shatter the illusion Kallum had woven. Kallum, that Xerith's voice faltered, barely a whisper against the sea of applause enveloping the room. The warmth of the community, once a shield, now felt like a shackle, chaining them to the ground. They glanced stern, eyes darting from familiar faces turned toward Kallum, their smiles blindingly bright. How had it come to this? A foreboding doubt settled deep in their gut, coiling like the fog creeping across the swamp. Had they miscalculated their efforts, or had they simply been too naive? As Kallum launched into further details, Xerith felt the sting of betrayal seep into their skin, the audience and enthusiasm warping around them like a tightening noose. They had poured their heart into this project, navigating the treacherous waters of innovation and community needs, only to have their ideas pilfer with a flourish. An anger so profound it paralyzed them settled over their shoulders, heavy as the humid air. How could they confront him without exposing their own vulnerability? How could they reclaim their vision when the community had already chosen sides? The meeting drew to a close. Kallum's triumphant grin etched in sharp relief against Xerith's spiraling thoughts. As the crowd dispersed, laughter and chatter mingling in the air like pollen in spring, Xerith stood rooted, a lone sentinel in a sea of shifting loyalties. They looked down at their trembling hands, the weight of the patchwork coat feeling like a shroud. What path lay ahead? Would they cower in the shadows or summon the strength to forge a new course, one where their voice could not be silenced? With a deep breath that tasted of iron and determination, Xerith turned towards the door, where the edge of their potential awaited like the distant call of the swamp, murky yet inviting, challenging them to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. The heart of the crooked swamp lay shrouded in the embrace of twilight, the air thick with humidity that clung to skin like a second layer. Twisted trees loomed overhead, their gnarled roots reaching out from the murky depths, appearing to grasp at the shadows dancing through the fog. Bioluminescent fungi pulsed with an eerie glow, casting an otherworldly light that painted the landscape in ghostly hues of blue and green. Here, where beauty and danger coexisted, Xerith stood, their heart racing as they faced Kallum. The oppressive silence was punctuated only by the distant croaks of frogs and the occasional rustle of unseen creatures, a haunting reminder of the isolation surrounding them. This confrontation, fueled by ambition and buried pain, felt predestined, a moment of reckoning that whispered of choices yet to unfold. Xerith clenched their jaw, the scar on their cheek tightening as they stepped forward. Determination etched into every line of their lean frame.
You think it all just a game, don't you?
The lives you've disrupted, the people you've hurt in your quest for power. Their voice, though steady, trembled with the weight of truth, resonating against the backdrop of rustling leaves and the soft lapping of water at the bank. Kallum's laughter, sharp and mocking, sliced through the oppressive air. Power, Xerith, is the only thing that matters in this world. You can't afford to be sentimental. The weak don't survive. And you change you dismissively, his stocky silhouette framed by the flickering glow of fungi. You too wrapped up in your dreams to see that. Xerith took a breath, the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves mingling with the bitterness of their frustration. Every word felt like an et of their past, the dreams they had embraced, twisted by the reality Kallum represented. And what of my community? The people who depend on us, whose lives you've toyed with for your own gain. Is that your definition of survival? The words spilled out, unbidden, as if dredging on memories submerged in the murky waters of their mind. Kallum's expression hardened, but a flicker of uncertainty crossed his face before he masked it with bravado. You think they care? They follow whoever shows them a glimmer of hope, and I believe. He thrust his chest out, puffing with arrogance. I could give them that. The tension thickened like the mist curling them, each accusation sparking a fierce battle in the air. Xerith's heart pounded, a wild drumbeat of anger and anguish fueling their resolve.
Hope isn't built on lies, Kallum.
You can't manipulate them forever. Eventually, they see you for what you are, a fraud. You think you can just walk away from the destruction you've caused. They stepped closer, the humidity pressing in, as if to cocoon them in this moment of confrontation. Kallum's eyes narrowed, the beefish shadow of doubt replaced by a sneer. Destruction? Or evolution? True leaders aren't burdened and by conscience. They forge their path, regardless of the cost. In that moment, a profound silence enveloped them, the air crackling with unspoken truths. Xerith felt the weight of their ambition crash against the reality they had tried to ignore. The swamp, with its tangled beauty, mirrored their inner turmoil. They could no longer pretend to stand apart from the consequences of their choices. Maybe at a time I chose a different path, they murmured, their voice barely above a whisper, the conviction of their words hanging in the air like the heavy fog. Kallum, sensing the shift, took a sudden step, uncertainty flickering across his face as he tried to regain control.
You regret this, Xerith?
You don't understand what you're giving Binyang. As the distant croaking of frogs fell silent, replaced by the pulse of their own heartbeat, Xerith realized the confrontation was not merely a clash of ideals, but a pivotal moment in their journey. Their decisions had led them to Rig. Perhaps it's not too late to forge a new way forward, they thought, steeling themselves in the presence of the man who had so often been the voice of their doubts. With their resolve hardening like granite, they stepped back, allowing the shadows of the swamp to swallow them whole, leaving Kallum behind in the luminous gloom. The murky silhouette of the swamp enveloped Xerith as they turned away, their heart racing, not from confrontation, but from the dawning realization of their own agency. Each step felt lighter, the oppressive weight of Kallum's words dissipating Nick's mist in the morning sun. It was a choice, a commitment to redefine the very essence of their ambition, one that sought to uplift rather than destroy. And they moved deeper into the swamp. The faint echoes of frogs and the soft rustle of leaves seemed to whisper promises of hope, urging them forward to confront the true nature of their journey. The true fight had just begun. In the dim recesses of Xerith's Xandor home, shadows stretched thick fingers across the walls, entwined with the eclectic chaos of notes, tools, and half-finished projects littered throughout the cramped space. The air hung heavy with the scent of damp earth and faintly metallic tangs from their latest experiments, mingling with the musty aroma of old books that lined the shelves. Flickering candlelight danced in the corners, casting wavering shadows that seemed to mock Xerith if disquiet. They sat hunched at a cluttered desk, a stark contrast to the ambitious dreams that once brightened their path. Now, those dreams felt like a weight, pressing down on them as they wrestled with the bitter tang of doubt. Had their pursuit of recognition cost them too much? The door creaked open, and Grieve stepped inside, his presence a solid anchor in the swirling tempest of Xerith's thoughts. He closed the door with a soft thud, the tranquility of his demeanor belying the storm brewing in Xerith's heart. You look like you've seen a ghost, friend, he said, his voice low and steady as he moved to lean against the wall, arms crossed. The soft glow of the candles flickered across his broad face, revealing the concern etched in the lines around his eyes. Xerith offered a weak smile, but it faltered the moment Kallum's gaze sharpened. It nothing. Just thoughts that won't quiet down. Kallum pushed off the wall, striding to join Xerith at the desk, his solid presence a grounding force. Thoughts be a cruel master, he replied, his tone even. He picked up a crumpled piece of paper, the remnants of a failed experiment, and held it between his fingers. You've sacrificed so much in chase of this recognition. But at what cost? Your community needs you, Xerith. They've watched you climb, but they've felt you slip away, too. Xerith's amber eyes flickered to the floor, the weight of Kallum's words sinking in like lead. How could they reconcile the ambition that consumed them with the love they held for their people? Xerith's heart raced, the tension prickling the air between them. I thought I could bring something back. That my work would help them, they murmured, their voice barely above a whisper. Kallum's brow furrowed, and he leaned closer, their breaths mingling in the warm, scented air. And what if your achievements only widen the chasm between you and your people?
Balance, Xerith.
You must seek balance. Your brilliance can shine, but it should light the way for others, not cast them in shadow. His words hung between them, a fragile thread woven from years of friendship and shared dreams, urging Xerith to confront the fissure that had grown too wide to ignore. Xerith's mind raced, the tempest of realizations unraveling the tightly wound knots beating their spirit. Kallum's voice echoed in their thoughts, a steady heartbeat amidst the chaos. As they gazed at the messy tapestry of their life spread out on the desk, the flickering candles mirrored the flames of a newfound determination igniting within them. Perhaps it was time for a reckoning, a choice that could reshape not only their destiny, but that of their forsaken community as well. They turned to Kallum, finding a reflection of hope in the mentor's steadfast gaze. It was not just about ambition, it was about belonging, a deep root and connection that called them back from the precipice. They inhaled deeply, the scent of wax and earth mingling, a promise of transformation lingering in the air. The heart of the crooked swamp lay shrouded in a thick veil of humidity, where the air clung to the skin like an uninvited guest. Twisted trees loomed overhead, their gnarled roots clawing at the surface of a murky pond that reflected the dim, filtered light of the waning sun. Xerith, sand, sat on the edge, the cool damp earth seeping through their rugged cargo pants, a sensation grounding and unsettling. As they stared into the dark waters, thoughts swirled like the elusive fog that spiraled around them, deep-rooted ambitions warring with the needs of their community. This was a space that held beauty and danger, mirroring the tumult within their heart, where dreams intertwined with the weight of responsibility. Xerith's fingers traced the outline of the scar on their cheek, a reminder of battles fought both with the world and within themselves. They recalled the people they had left behind in their pursuit of recognition, the faces of those who depended on them flickering in and out of focus, like shadows in the myrrh. "What have I done?" they murmured to the half-formed reflections in the water, the silence amplifying their doubts. The gentle lapping of the pond surface felt like a heartbeat, steady yet insistent, urging them to confront the truth they had sought to evade. A soft rustle broke the stillness, pulling Xerith from their reverie. Grieve emerged from the thick foliage, his stocky frame casting a reassuring presence against the unsettling backdrop. It approached slowly, a knowing nuke in his deep-set eyes. "You're far away today, Xerith," he said, his voice a rich timbre, like the forest itself. "What weighs on your mind?" Kallum, words were not merely inquiries. They were an invitation to unburden their soul. With a heavy sigh, Xerith turned to face him, the flicker of vulnerability in their amber gaze revealing the depth of their turmoil. "I'm torn, Kallum. My ambitions, they drive me, but at what cost?" Xerith gestured toward the murky water, despair twisting their features. "I want to do something great, to be remembered. But the people here, they need more than my accolades. They need a steward, not a celebrity." Kallum nodded, the quiet wisdom in his demeanor urging Xerith to continue. The mentor stepped close, the earthy scent of moss and decaying leaves clinging to him, grounding as a stone amidst their storm. And yet, greatness often blooms in the fertile soil of community, not in isolation. The tension in the air shifted, as if the very swamp held its breath, listening. The world remembers those who uplift others, not just those who elevate themselves. You have the potential to be a bridge, Xerith, to unite ambition with purpose. Your path doesn't have to be a solitary one. Kallum's voice wrapped around them, a gentle reminder of the power of connection. As Xerith processed his words, the shadows in their heart began to recede, revealing the flicker of resolve igniting within them. With a deep breath, Xerith stood, the weight of their choices shifting from a burden to a responsibility they were ready to embrace. The murky waters reflected their renewed determination, a mirror of the clarity forming in their heart. "You're right, Kallum. I can't turn my back on them, not anymore. I won't." I'll find a way to balance my ambitions with the needs of the community. It's time to act, not just dream. As they spoke, the bioluminescent fungi surrounding them pulsed with a faint glow, echoing their newfound resolve. The crooked swamp, once a place of doubt, now felt that fertile ground for transformation. And with every step they took away from the pond, they could feel the shadows lifting, ready to forge a new path forward. The town square, once a hub of laughter and warmth, now pulsated with tension, thick enough to slice through the murmur of anxious townsfolk. Makeshift barricades of splinter wood and rust-of metal lay scattered, remnants of a community preparing for conflict. Bright banners, once vibrant with the colors of unity, now hung limply, dulled by the weight of uncertainty. Xerith Xandor stepped into this charged atmosphere, their dark green hair whipping about in the wind, the scar on their cheek glinting under the fading sunlight. The air was heavy with the scent of sweat and fear, and as they locked eyes with Grieve, the crowd's self-appointed leader, the stakes soared. Kallum stood tall at a podium, his voice a honey-ed poison, weaving through the crowd like a serpent, promising them a revolution that flickered with danger and delight. "They want to control you," Xerith shouted, their voice breaking the spell that Kallum had cast. The words hung in the air, tension crackling in the space between them. As the townsfolk turned, puzzled, whispers rippled through the crowd like wind through tall grass. Xerith stepped forward, heart pound, the fabric of their patchwork lab coat brushing against their legs, a reminder of the unity they sought to foster. Kallum preys on your fears, distorting the truth to suit his ambitions. Kallum's eyes narrowed, his smile faltering for a moment till he scanned the crowd, now divided. "And who are you to challenge my vision?" A misguided scientist lost in their own dreams. His voice dripped with contempt, but the presence of doubt had begun to fester among the townsfolk. Xerith inhaled deeply, the scent of damp earth mingling with the acrid tang of uncertainty, and pressed on. "I am not head to lead you astray. I have you hope. On revolution through chaos, but unity through understanding." The crowd shifted, some murmuring agreement, others frowning in confusion. Kallum's rhetoric lost its hold. "We've stood divided for too long," Xerith continued, their hands gesturing broadly as if to weave the very air around them into a tapestry of common purpose. "Together we forge a path that honors our past while building a future grounded in trust and collaboration. We are stronger, fell one on." As the words landed, a flicker of recognition sparked in the eyes of the townsfolk, the hum of their collective heartbeats rising in unison. Kallum, realizing his grip was slipping, stepped away from the podium, fists clenched in anger. But it was too late. The tide had turned. A hushed silence enveloped the square, pregnant with possibility, as Xerith's voice rang out, a beacon in the dark. "Will you vow the path of fear, or will you stand together for our community futures?" The tension in the air thickened, pregnant, with a newfound energy that shimmered like heat above the asphalt. One by one, the townsfolk began to step forward, their expressions shifting from doubt to determination, as if awakening from a long slumber. Kallum's face twisted with frustration, but Xerith could see the spark of unity igniting among those that. This was not merely a moment of confrontation. It was a birth of something greater, a collective will to reclaim their narrative. As Xerith stood resolute, their hearts surged with a fierce sense of responsibility. They had awakened their community, but at what cost? The shadow of Kallum lingered, and the battle was far from over. The community gathering hall stood resolute at the heart of the town, a weather-rare monument to unity amidst the chaos that had recently unfolded. Sunlight streamed through the tall arched windows, casting warm dappled patterns across the worn wooden floor, while the scent of freshly baked bread from the kitchen, mingling with the earthy aroma of the surrounding swamp. Xerith Xandor stepped onto the slightly elevated platform, their patchwork lab coat fluttering like a banner in the gentle breeze that whispered through the open doors. The townsfolk there in hushed anticipation, their faces a canvas of concern and hope, reflecting the aftermath of confrontation. A collective year reigned for resolution that seemed to hang in the air, thick than the humidity outside. Xerith cleared their throat, the sound echoing against the high ceiling, drawing eyes to their bright amber gaze. We stand in today, not as separate ambitions, but as a tapestry woven from each of our dreams and burdens. I know I've been lost in my pursuits, blinded by ambition, but I'm learning that true progress doesn't come at the cost of our community. It comes from within it. The murmur amongst the crowd swelled, a mixture of doubt and willingness to listen. They could feel the weight of their words, heavy yet uplifting. They continued, "We must balance what we aspire to achieve with the responsibility we hold for each other." A soft nod from the back of the room drew Xerith's gaze toward their mentor, Liral. The older woman, clad in her simple flowing gown, had always carried a quiet strength, but today her approving smile felt like a shield against the uncertainty. Liral's voice, steady and rich, filled the hall. "Xerith, you've shown us that ambition can fuel innovation, but it's your commitment to our shared future that will truly light the way. Let us share our fears and hopes together. We can redefine what success means." The townsfolk began to relax, the tension in their shoulders easing as they leaned forward, eager to engage in the newfound dialogue. One by one, voices began to rise above the whispers, a cascade of hopes mingling with fears. "What if we fail again?" an elder called out, his hands trembling as he clutched the edge of his chair. "Hope is a fragile thing, Xerith," a young mother chimed in, her voice quaking yet fierce. "But if we don't try, what future will we leave our children?" The atmosphere shifted palpably, each shared sentiment pelt a bridge across the chasm of doubt. Xerith felt their hearts swell, the pulse of community igniting a fire within, propelling them to speak with renewed fervor. "Exactly. Every setback is a lesson, a step toward a stronger collective. Let's forge a path where our dreams can thrive together." This year thrummed with a burgeoning energy. If the very foundations of the gathering hall were vibrating with the hopes of a revitalized community. Liral's eyes sparkled with pride, reflecting the light of the burgeoning resolve among the townsfolk. As voices melded into a chorus of shared purpose, Xerith looked out over the sea of faces, each one a testament to the journey ahead. They knew the path would be fraught with challenges, but for the first time, doubt was overshadowed a profound sense of unity. The gathering hall had transformed from a mere structure into a beacon of hope. As Xerith raised their hands, the crowd fell into a reverent silence, ready to embrace the future together. In that charged moment, as the townsfolk began to rise with renewed energy, Xerith realized this was just the beginning. The shadows of their past still linger, yet they felt a flicker of courage ignite within them. Commitment to the community would require sacrifices, but the rewards were immeasurable. With determination etched on their face, they stepped forward, inviting the townsfolk to join them in crafting a vision for their shared future. The gathering hall, now echoing with a blend of laughter and spirited conversation, became a sanctuary for the dreams of many, a foundation to build upon. Together, they would reclaim their narrative, and the world the hall seemed to promise that the battle was far from over.